Hey guys, how is it going? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For the purpose of those who never seen me before, my name is Nabioku, your popular tech bro where they teach programming for Pidgin English. So one of my friends just called me yesterday saying, make I come explain the idea and the concept of object and object-oriented programming for them. And why many people for the industry, they rely on the understanding and the knowledge of object and object-oriented programming. So for inside this video, I will give you a non-technical explanation of what object and object-oriented programming really be. But before we get started, I will quickly use this opportunity to tell you, say, if you never subscribe to my YouTube channel, kindly use this time to do so because your subscription are waiting, they give me ginger and motivation to always make videos like this. So without wasting much of our time, let's get started. So I would like start like this, say learning how to write computer program go train your mind to understand some abstract information. Say for example, for any programming language, you dey do things like creating a variable, declare a collection, perform looping operation, do some mathematical operation, some conditional statements too. You dey try and catch exception, you dey handle file, you dey break and continue. In fact, you dey change from one data type to the other. You see many of these things wey you dey do so, dem be things wey dey get direct and straightforward definition and explanation. For example, a variable na just a container wey dem dey store or save something inside. Straightforward, easy and direct. But many times things no dey always dey very straightforward, easy and direct like that. We dey always get some more complex and complicated things wey be say na where the idea of object and object-oriented programming come in be that. Say many times if you wan give a thorough explanation of some things, we go need mention multiple things before we go fit define them perfectly and properly. This explanation wey I give so, I know say e dey a little abstract, so make we just quickly link am to real life. In reality, object na anything wey we fit see, feel or touch, right? For example, say your mobile phone. Look at this mobile phone now. You go agree with me say to perfectly define this mobile phone, e get many things wey we go need talk about. We go talk about the color, the camera, the model, the brand, the memory, the screen size, the charging port, the software wey dey make this phone work properly. So that one mean say before we fit represent this single phone to a computer, e get a lot of things. We gats talk about so many things, including the actions wey this phone fit perform. For example, say this phone fit perform the action of making calls. So object na anything wey get plenty attributes wey dey define them, and object-oriented programming na how we dey take represent object for inside programming. Shey you get this explanation? Another real life example of object na car. Say before you define a car perfectly, you go need talk about some things like the color of the car, the model, the manufacturer, the fuel type, the engine, the gear speed and different types of things like that. So again, anything wey be say e go require you to talk about so many things before you go fit define am perfectly and clearly. Na wetin object just be that. This thing fit be anything. E fit be your shoe, e fit be your toothbrush, e fit be computer, wristwatch, wristband, chain, food, in fact anything whatsoever. I hope say you connect well with this explanation wey I give so. Now, as I don give you real life explanation of wetin object and object-oriented programming really be, make we come comot for inside real life, come talk about object and object-oriented programming for inside computer. The definition of object still remain the same, but e go just take a little cough and you go see am in just a few seconds. Now, to be able to do object orientation for inside computer, we go need do some other concepts like classes, methods, properties, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, composition, collection, keywords, interfaces, abstract, inner classes, and things like that. If you no get knowledge of programming, you fit no connect well, you fit no understand these things wey I just mention now so. But no just worry yourself too much. That one no be issue because this video na non-technical explanation of object-oriented programming. So I no dey really particular say I go go further into explaining these things. And so you sef no just worry yourself too much about them. So why object-oriented programming come be big deal for inside industry? Well, in your day-to-day life as a programmer, you go dey solve different kinds of problem and you go know say to provide real solution to different problem, you go need talk about so many things before you go fit define that problem perfectly. Say for example, you go need talk about the type of the problem, the kind of the problem, how the problem take start, the name of the problem, the type of the data wey you go require to solve this problem perfectly and clearly, and other things like that. And if you are into or you wan choose a career as a software engineer, you go dey do things like data structure and algorithm. You go dey build technological product for many people to use, either API, plugin or themes. So you no fit live your life as a programmer without doing things like creating classes, declaring properties, functions, methods, file linkage, setting instances, calling methods, doing concurrency and threads. So na wetin object-oriented programming just be exactly be that. Say many times we go need to tell computer how to represent something perfectly, right? And to represent something perfectly, e go gats require us to talk about so many things: the shape of something, the size of something, the height of something, wetin that thing fit do. Shey you get? So now everything, now the concept of object-oriented programming be this in a layman language. Shey you get say without any technical interpretation of this thing, na wetin object-oriented programming just be that. Shey you get. If you enjoy this video, show me some love, say make you like, share and subscribe to my channel. So as e be say I don talk about object and object-oriented programming for inside this video, na so e go be for inside this video. I go see you for the next one.